Hey, Margie here. Are you ready to learn some insights and lessons from a man who's done over 2,700 podcast interviews? Well, if so, you're in the right place because our special guest today is Richard Jacobs. And in October 2016, Richard started the Future Tech Podcast, which has now become the Finding Genius Podcast. And his goal was to learn about round the corner new technologies, such as artificial intelligence, 3D printing, stem cells, regenerative medicine, and more. But due to a major health crisis in 2017, Richard decided to focus on health and medicine and bioscience issues that affect all of us as human beings. In the middle of 2019, Richard realized that what he was actually doing, has been doing for over 15 years, was seeking out the best of the best in any given field, the 1 in 1,000 genius practitioner in their field, and interviewing them to learn everything he could. Richard calls this Finding Geniuses, and it's the name of his podcast. And I was interviewed for Richard's podcast, and I saw what a wealth of knowledge he has because of doing all these interviews over the years. So I wanted to have him on so he could share the wisdom that he's gained with all of you. So there's lots to be learned from this that I really believe you can put into your life. So enjoy. Welcome, Rich. I'm really excited to have you here on the podcast. And you are a major podcaster yourself. My goodness, 2,700 interviews. It's just unbelievable. But you know what I'd love I always like to hear the backstory and how people got to do what they did. So why don't you just share how you got involved with 2,700 interviews and how now you're focusing on health and wellness. I think that would be really interesting to hear.
Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me on. So I started in October 2016, and I just wanted to learn things at the time. The 2016 election was going on. It was really negative, and I got tired of it. And I was getting emails at the same time from Peter Diamandis, who runs the X Prize, and all his emails were about like stem cells and 3D printing and AI. When I read those emails, I was happy. When I look at political garbage, I was unhappy. So I made the decision, I don't want to look at politics anymore. I want to look at good things that made me feel good. So I started doing that. And then I always have curiosity. I ask tons of questions. My wife drives her crazy. So she said, go learn something. If you want to look at all this stuff, go learn. So a friend of mine that lives overseas, he needed work. So I said, hey, can you start tracking down the authors of some of these articles I'm reading? And he started doing that. And I started with cryptocurrency, like Bitcoin first. And I loved it. It was like so thrilling to interview all these people and learn from them that I just kept going and going and going and doing more and more interviews. And over time, it built up. And I got into the groove, and it was easy. And then in 2018, I ended up getting into a car accident, late at night on the highway. I got run off the road, literally, like onto the, luckily I wasn't off a cliff. And I got a concussion and all that. And at the hospital, they scanned me, and they told me I had nodules on my thyroid. It turned out to be thyroid cancer. So that, melted my insides, essentially. And I was like, all right, I want to figure this out, because now all of a sudden I'm confronted with dying much sooner than I wanted to. So everything worked out, luckily, but it turned my attention to health and bioscience and medicine. And from there, the podcast focused mostly on that. And, now as of today, it's about literally about 2,700 interviews over 4 years. So I'm keeping going, and I'm loving it.
Wow, I can't even imagine 2,700. That's just that I do one a week, so that would take me a very long time to do 2,700.
I kind of go crazy. I clump them, and I'll do a bunch 3 days a week. So
Right.
It doesn't take tons of time, but I just, like at first it felt like I was drinking from like 100 fire hoses, but now I'm used to it, and I just enjoy it. I learn like I'm doing a series on ants and bees. So I'm learning about ants and bees from all these scientists, and I pick things I want to learn about, articles I read, and I go learn about it. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's so much. I agree with you. I love it because I've just met so many amazing people and I love bringing all this information. So what I'd love for you to share with everybody, because there aren't many people that have done 2,700 interviews. Why don't you share what health related things you've learned or what's been in common? Would you say the biggest lessons that you're able to learn from all of this that you could probably help people in the, people, the listeners, that you could give some of your wisdom that you've gained from all of these interviews?
Yeah, what I learned is a lot of people, when I speak to them about a particular health issue, almost always the person had a problem with that issue. They went to doctors. The doctor told you you're crazy, everything's fine, or they gave them the standard of care. They didn't accept that, and they started researching on their own. They became an expert in their own right. They solved their own problem, and now they want to help other people. That's almost always the backstory of everyone I speak to, and I really admire that. I've spoken to people that had stage 4 cancer. They should have been dead 10 years ago, and they're doing fine right now. And I've spoken to people with all kinds of conditions which normal medicine says unsolvable, nothing you can do, and they've solved it. So that really gives me hope and inspires me. And same thing with, the problems I had. So that's one big thing I've gotten out of the podcast. Another thing is, if I read an article on something, there's always a ton more behind it than just the article. Like the typical media will ask people a few generalities about stuff, but if you're really curious about it, you've got to talk to the person that wrote that scientific paper or did that article. Like if you search Google, it's funny, Google's supposed to have like all the world's information. I think Google has probably like 5% of all the world's information on any subject. And I'm not exaggerating. If you want to learn about anything, you cannot just look on Google and look on WebMD and all that stuff. You're going to get like a few different things. Everything else will be censored, which a lot of health information is censored. And you got to go learn about it and find out about it. Like here's a thesis that I've come to realize is, of the people I interview, some topics I'll do like 100 interviews of people in that arena. And what shakes out is probably 95% of the people are good at what they do and they're smart, and I learn a lot from them. And then there'll be like 4% that are really good, and I can hear it like, wow, this person really knows what they're doing. And then every once in a while I'll get someone where like within 5 minutes I'm like, wow, this person is a genius. And those are the people I love to interview because you just learn amazing stuff. Like, you'll hear it on some of the podcasts. I'm like, really? Wow, that's crazy. And I learn amazing stuff. And then I really get deep into the problem. And the more interviews I do, the more I can ask better questions of the subsequent people. And I can really become get a street MBA or become an expert in those subjects. So that's what, at least some of the things that I learned from podcasting.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So number one, dig deeper. Don't just accept there's nothing that we can do, which I completely agree with you. And I totally agree because that's how everybody gets into what they're doing, that they had a problem, they had to dig deeper, and then they saw how they improved and they wanted to share that and they learned more. So that's a good point though, because oftentimes you'll read the headlines, just like what you said, you'll read the headlines of the paper and it will say this, but don't accept that until you really research the article and see what's behind it, because oftentimes there's a lot more involved than just the very basic information. So that's really good information.
Oh, yeah.
What about health trends? Are there things that you think you've learned or that you'd like to share? Some things that are, I know you're a big sleep person, right? In terms of how important sleep is. Is that something that you want to share?
Yeah, I've had a lot of problems. I'm heavy. I've been overweight most of my life. Once I had the cancer, I went on like a ketogenic diet and I lost like 40 something pounds. My sleep improved and everything, but I began on this quest to keep improving my health and improving. So sleep became a big part of it. I've had all kinds of problems with sleep, so I wanted to interview again 100 something people and learn about it. I learned about sleep apnea, about light and dark cycles, about the right pillows, the right bed. I mean, just everything you can think of to try to solve the problem, because I tend to unfortunately be one of those people where the problems I have, the response I usually get is, I've never seen this before. That's weird. So I'm in this like small minority of people that tend to have, when I have problems, they're difficult to solve, and I've got to go really dig and solve them. I'm not happy with just the standard stuff. It doesn't work for me a lot of times. So that's why I went into sleep a lot to improve my sleep, and I have. I ended up actually getting a few patents on some custom tailored pillows to help people sleep better. And I use that one to help, reduce snoring, one to sleep better. So I've taken the knowledge I've learned and used it to improve my life, my health, my wife, my family's health. There's a lot of great stuff I picked up from the podcast.
Well, you know what? Let's just delve into this a little more because sleep is so essential, and sleep major correlation with bone health, with happiness, with every single area of your health. There's not one thing that if you're not getting a good night's sleep that it's not affecting. So maybe share some of the things that you've created and why you created them, and what need you saw and what the product has answered, because I think that could be very helpful for people, because I know there's a lot of people listening because who do have sleep issues. So why don't you shed some light on that, because I think that could really help lots of us.
What I've learned is it's not easy to fix the problem. Like I sleep really late hours. Everyone I tell this to, they're horrified. It's like my dad. I've been going to bed between 3 and 4 in the morning and getting up at 11 or noon for like 20 years. My dad's been doing this for like 50 years. And people are like, oh my God, I sleep 8 hours a night. I just sleep way late hours. And for me, sleeping earlier, it's like quitting smoking for some reason. When we go on vacation, I do it because we got to go out and see stuff, and I'm fine. I get back home, I start creeping later and later and later. I don't know why I sleep this. I just do. So what I realized is, half the time I'm sleeping, there's sunlight outside and it's coming into the room. So I got blackout curtains, which helped. I got a humidifier because in the winter, I'd wake up 10, 20 times and have to drink water because the room's so dry. So I got that. I tried melatonin, which does help sometimes. I got a more comfortable bed. I got better pillows. I have fans on and ambient noise. I've tried a system called Uller. It's a layover over the mattress, a mattress cover that keeps it cool. You can lower the temperature, and that helps a lot too. I keep it at like 64 degrees. So I usually get very hot when I sleep, but this keeps me cool. I'm laying against, this water-cooled pad. So I've done a lot of stuff to make my sleep better, and it's helped. Each little thing adds a few percent better. And I've got it to the point where I would say like probably at least 4 nights a week, I sleep pretty well. I wake up and I'm ready to go and I feel good. It used to be like I would wake up like, and have to drink coffee and all that, but now I don't, and I feel a lot better. Before I did any of this, I would notice like at 8 o'clock at night, I would get exhausted for about an hour, and then I'd get like a second wind and I'd be wide awake until later. And I didn't realize until I fixed my sleep that was me not getting enough sleep. It was problematic. I was snoring very loud. My wife would say, man, I can't sleep. You're snoring me out of this place. And once I fixed all these things and lost weight and slept better, now she said I still will, but it's very quiet and it doesn't bother her as much. So a lot of improvement. It just took a lot of iterations. It wasn't like one thing that fixed everything. That's what I want to communicate to people. Like, if you value sleep, if you have a sleep problem, you really got to think about it and diagnose it. What's your sleep environment like? Are dogs barking? Are kids waking you up? Is your bed uncomfortable? Is your pillow like kinking your neck? Is it dry in the room? Is it hot? Is it cold? It's like when you wake up from a dream, you forget the dream after a few minutes. I noticed that about sleep. You wake up, but after 10 minutes, you forgot about how you slept. So keeping a diary of how you slept helps, and just really like thinking, what are all the little things I could do to improve my sleep environment and make like a sleep chamber for myself so I can feel better.
Oh, that's great. And it's interesting that each one was like another layer to improve. I like the way you explained that. So what products did you create though? You said you created certain products that helped you.
Yeah, I created a custom tailored pillow. So we use photography. We'll have the person take a picture of themselves, and the machine vision will measure the width of their face, height of their head, distance from the neck to the shoulder. Then we take a picture from the side. Some people, their heads are forward. Some are like military straight. Some people's heads are very rounded in the back. Some are flatter. So when you lay on a pillow, depending on your mattress and your pillow, you may be sleeping like this, or your head may be up, or a lot of people will wake up with neck pain, or your airway is only the width of a garden hose. So if you're laying and it gets kinked, that cuts off your air supply, and it makes you snore more. It makes you have resistance where you're going, and you're gasping in your sleep and all that. So being aligned and sleeping straight is super, super, super important. I also learned about a pillow between the knees to the ankles, because if not, your legs are kind of hanging down, and that pulls on your lower back. I also sleep on my side, so when I'd sleep on my side, I'd hug a pillow, but I would still tend to like collapse. So I had to make a pillow of a special design where you could hug it, but it keeps you, on your side and not collapsing in. Because I notice when I collapse in, it constricts my neck. So just all these little nuances. So I created a series of custom tailored pillows based on the person. Some people have wide shoulders. Some have big heads, skinny heads, narrow shoulders. So it's customized to the person. So that was one thing that I created to help people.
Oh, well, you're talking to a physical therapist, so this is all makes total sense to me. To be in a nice neutral posture while you're sleeping is going to majorly affect. So I love that. I love the idea of that body pillow so that you can't collapse. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
And what have you found? What, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, so what have you found with all the people who've been using your products?
It helps a lot. Like, it won't get rid of the snoring, for instance, but we used an app called Snore Lab. We had some of the customers use it, and it's a score of like 1 to 100 and how rough and loud the snoring is. So we would get like a 20 or 30 point reduction, which is very significant. We'd have people that are like at a 50, and they'd go to like a 20 or a 30. A 60, go to like a 40. So it didn't get rid of the snoring totally, but it made it a lot quieter, and the person slept better. And the person in the bed with them is like, oh, much better, it's a lot better now.
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, the person who's sleeping with them was probably so grateful to you. Snoring's
Well, I learned over a quarter of all couples do not sleep together. It's, they call it like a sleep divorce or something, but they'll sleep in separate rooms, or kick someone out to the couch or whatever, because they can't sleep together because one person's so loud. I mean, I had that problem too with my wife. She said, man, I can't sleep with you. You're snoring me out of the house. So she would sleep in the other room a lot, and she felt really bad about it. And I said to her, we're not together while we're asleep. And she was like, she kind of took that and accepted it, but she didn't like it. But, also too, if I wanted to go on vacation with my family, I'd have to get a separate hotel room because I didn't want to snore them all awake. I felt terrible about that. So, you don't realize, but simple things like that can really affect your relationships and your health.
So when you go away, do you bring your pillow with you? What do you do?
Yes. Yep. I have my head pillow and my huggable pillow, and I put them in my suitcase, and I take them everywhere I go. I will not travel without them. Because you go to a different bed, hotel, whatever, you won't even sleep at all if it's bad enough. So, Airbnb or hotel, I always take it with me. I'm serious.
So on an airplane, you travel with your pillows. You bring them on
I just put them in my suitcase.
Yeah.
Yeah, put them in the suitcase, and then I pick up my luggage, and they're in there.
Yeah. No. That's great. That's good. Well, that's great that you've made these products then. So you have the big pillow, the regular pillow. Anything else? Any other products?
Products that I've made. I'm working on a custom chair that can be adjustable, because, like, when people sit in a chair, a lot of them, the pan is up, so it causes your back to slump. It's bad posture. So I'm making a custom one where you can have the pan tilt down that you sit on, and some other adjustments to help your posture and, when you sit. Because I have a big problem with that. Like, if I don't have a really good chair, I can't get work done, because I got to get up and move around, and my ass hurts, my back hurts. So I've, put out a patent for that. People need better chairs. Like, a lot of the chairs out there are just garbage, and they're like, I took some pictures of people sitting in chairs on an airplane. Whoever designed airplane, no, I swear to God, whoever designed airplane seats has never sat in them, and they're a torturer, because they're the worst. They're like a potato, like sitting in a potato chip. It's horrible. Whoever designed them, and most seats in cars and chairs people sit on, like, they have no regard for what's good for people. and it's killing people's posture. It's not good.
Oh my gosh, you're talking to the person who preaches about posture. I absolutely agree with you. You know, it's incredible what the problem is with those with the with those seats,
Mm-hmm.
and it's true, and it's so important, and I mean, I think two things. I think people have to learn how to sit, number one, but also you have to have the right chair that you can adjust and make it so that you can have a good posture, because
Yeah.
it's every single thing is affected by posture. So good for
Yeah,
you.
and through the podcast, I've interviewed people that do what's called egoscue and posture therapy, and now I work with a guy once a week. Me and my wife, he comes over. We do posture therapy, and we feel much better when we do it. I walk and I feel like I'm like the king. I feel like I feel great. I feel upright, and it just helps a lot with everything. So it's important.
Yeah, it's so important. And I think the interesting thing about posture is nobody realizes, like people don't realize they're sitting slumped. It's not something that you're consciously, unless someone tells you or unless you start becoming aware that, like, oh yeah, like maybe if I did a few things, it would make such a difference. But that's great that you've done these, where can they find, if people are listening and interested in your products? Is that
Yeah,
on?
the pillow it's at a website called thegoodnightssleepproject.com. So that's where they can find the pillow and stuff. Yeah, and the podcast, I can. That's on findinggeniuspodcast.com.
And so in terms of that share, so that would, when that's available, people could find it from, or I
I
guess
don't know
that's,
yet, but I'll make sure it's available. I just don't know the
yeah,
URL
that's,
for it
that's
yet. But yeah,
great. Yeah. Cause we need good chairs, it's right now.
yeah.
I'm so with you on that. That's great. So, all right. So we've done sleep, we've done dig deep. Are there some other lessons that you would like to share with everybody from all your 2,700 interviews that?
Yeah, I talked about, well, so one thing that's important is like when you have a problem, if you have a medical problem or any problem in your life, think to yourself, is it a 95% problem? Is it a 4% problem or a 1% problem? If you've got a 1% problem, by definition, most people you go to will not solve it because unfortunately you got a really badass problem. You've got to find the top experts. The only way to do that is become educated about what's going on with you so you can ask intelligent questions. So if you have a problem and you really want to solve it, that's what you need to do is figure out like what level of problem do I have? And it does not mean it can't be solved, but you've got to find the right people. They're out there. The people I've noticed that are geniuses are not good marketers, and you'd be surprised. Like they'll have like a little shop or a little practice in some place where like again they may have a crappy website, but they're amazing. Like I go to an acupuncturist like that. He works out of his house, the old Chinese guy, but he's like 1,000 times better than the other acupuncturists I've been to. He's great. He's helped my ankle and all kinds of stuff, but you've got to find these people if you have a really bad problem. You will not get the answer from standard doctors, standard chiropractors, standard whatever. And you got to keep pushing and looking and getting referrals to find the best. So that's like a big lesson for me to communicate to people. And by talking to a lot of people, you can get a lot more perspective on your problem if you want to solve it than just like going to one person. I'm not talking about second opinion. I'm talking about 20th opinion, 30th opinion, 50th. And yes, it's work, but if your life's at stake, if your happiness or your health's at stake, you got to do it.
And so how would you suggest, they're not going to go see obviously 20 doctors, but do you have any little tips where people can look or where people can get the guidance?
Yeah, one good thing to ask your practitioner, whoever it is if you had this problem, who would you go see? Because that's a better way than saying like, oh, you know, do you know someone that can help me with this problem? Well, I'm coming to you. If your doctor or practitioner, whatever, says like, there's not much I can do from you, or this is all I know. Again, ask them that. Like, who do you know that you would go to? Like, if you had to get to the best that was just amazing about this, or a true specialist, who would you go to? So that's good.
Yeah, I
Always
like
ask
that.
for
That's
referrals.
great. Yeah, that's a really,
Yeah,
that's a really good way to ask.
yeah, and the really good practitioners, when you talk to them about alternative health, they won't just naysay at all. They'll say, well, I don't do that. Check into it. I don't know, but I just, the bad ones will go, oh, no, that doesn't work. Only drugs work, or only this works. That's the bad ones will be closed-minded. The good ones will say, well, try it, go see and all that, and go see those people. You never know. That's what I would recommend.
Okay, that's so important because I think things have changed so much in medicine, way back when people didn't question. And, and I think people, I agree with you that a lot of times the doctors will tell you, you know what, that's not my expertise, or they, and then they can give you, I know that my son had, when he was really young, had some issue in his ear. It was a very, very rare type of thing. And the doctor said, oh, I could do that surgery. And then I asked, well, how many did you do? And he only did maybe 10, where there's people that have done thousands. So and had I not asked that, he would have gone ahead and done the surgery. So I think, and then we ended up bringing him to a major specialist. But it's interesting. Sometimes you just need to, just like you said, need to ask and keep going. So yeah, that's really very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and look for people that have had this problem and have written books about it. Because again, they're going to have gone through that journey for you. They're going to have talked to all kinds of experts, been, spit on and told you're fine, and they pushed through and figured it out. And those are some of the best people to find.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good. And has there been any trends in terms of health advice besides, we talked about the sleeping, anything that you wanted to share with people that maybe you've gotten from several of the experts or that's helped you in your life? Is there anything interesting that you would like to spread to the world?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's got to make the caveat. I'm not a doctor. This is not health advice. Go seek a professional, etc. With that caveat in place, I think it's very important to pay attention to lifespan versus health span. I'm in my mid 40s. I look ahead to people that are 60 and 70. Some of them are 3/4 dead. Some of them are doing amazing. So I realize, like, every day of my life, I've got to make that choice. Am I going to be the crippled ones, or am I going to be the ones that are doing well? And you, in your own life, wherever you're at in your health, look ahead to older people. If you're lucky, you're going to get older. And when you get older, if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to have bad problems. I remember I used to say to myself in 20s and 30s, I'll worry about it when I'm in my 40s, Well, 40s came, and I had problems, and I had to fix them. And they're harder when you're older than when you're younger. So that's one piece of advice I would say. Never say to yourself, oh, I'm just getting old. That's just what happens. That's bullshit. People, like I said, there's people, in their 70s, 80s, 90s that are doing amazing. There's people in their 50s that are like one step away from death because they're so out of it. They're just, So again, who are you going to choose to be? You choose that every day with every meal you eat, with everything you think, with everything you do. So you've got to realize that. That's some of the advice that I would give people. And you'd be surprised. There's a lot of solutions out there to stuff that, again, are not at first glance. You got to go deeper and deeper and deeper to find those solutions. Don't give up, because there are solutions to a lot of problems. You just got to look.
Yeah, I think that's great, because if you visualize yourself in your 80s, 90s, healthy and well, and before you take that major sugar overload or whatever it is, it really affects your behavior. And what I found is once people, and it's a gradual process, start adopting these healthy lifestyles, they feel so good that they don't want to go back. But it takes, just like you said, that commitment and that visualization to see how do you want to be. That's really so very important. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. So it's.
Yeah. One last thing to mention is, you may think you feel good, but when you improve your health and you feel a lot better, you're like, wow, I didn't even realize like this hurt. I didn't even realize this was tiring or this was hard to do. Like, the better you feel, there's days I felt like amazing. I felt like I had so much energy. I was like going to go crazy, which is cool. I never used to feel like that. And actually a doctor that I see, he's been on like carnivore diet for like 2.5 years. And he told me in confidence, he's like, I feel so good. I feel bad for other people. Like, I feel bad that I feel so good is what he said, for other people, So that was funny, but that's really cool. He looks great. He's in really good health. He looks like he's like in his mid-50s, but he's probably at his high school weight. He just looks great, So a lot of good things are possible if you try it.
Absolutely. And don't settle. I agree with you. Life is too short. It's too short not to have the good health and vibrant health and, happiness that we deserve. It really is. You can do that. And I love that message of yours. And so in terms of mindset or stress or anything like that, is there anything that your 2,700 interviews, anything in that you want to briefly share with everybody? Has that been
Well, I had to, like I said, what started me on the podcast is I had to choose to look at positive things. This year, especially with COVID and all that, like it's a mental game this whole year, and it's a game a lot of people are losing. This year, you've got to pay a lot of attention to your mind and what you're thinking and what you're experiencing, because if you're living in fear and if you're just negative about stuff, it's gonna win. You're gonna get sick. You're gonna have a horrible life. You're not gonna be unhappy. You have to choose happiness. Even if you don't know how to be happy, you got to say to yourself, I don't want to be negative anymore. I want to find out how to be happy, and keep that thought in your mind every day. And if you do that, you'll find stuff that will help you. If you like to paint, make sure every week you spend 30 minutes painting. You can do that. If you like to go for walks, if you do whatever, like do things that will make you happy. One thing I've discovered, like with my kids, they're on computers all the time. And when we get them out into nature to go for walks or on vacations or whatever, they're in much better mood. And so whatever it takes, I try to make sure like we're out in the sun every day for like 20 minutes. That helps get out of the house, go for walks, go on vacations, whatever we can. And don't sit inside, because that's poison. That's death. To be on the computer and the phone and stuff all that time is bad for you. So that's like a real general thing that will help pretty much anyone's health. Get out and be in nature a little bit. You will feel a lot better.
Oh, absolutely. It grounds you. And it's really the antidote to feeling, when we are on the computer, just getting yourself grounded out in nature. And also the rhythm outside. The rhythm of nature is slow, medium to slow. And the rhythm of our lives these days is medium to fast. So it's so wonderful.
Yep.
Wow. Well, this has been great, because I really think so many people can relate to so many of the things. And, I don't know anyone else who's had 2,700 interviews and really gained such great wisdom from this. So is there any last minute thing that you'd like to share before we end? Anything else?
Yeah. I'm a normal person. I've still got issues I'm working through. I still get angry. I still get frustrated. It's not like my life's like this beautiful wonderland with birds around my head, but I learned that, again, you can make your life a lot better than it is right now if you don't like your life. You can't accept it. You got to do something about it. And you can just do amazing things if you just a little bit every day, try and try and try and try. So that's what I encourage people listening. Like, I don't care how old you are. I don't care how good or bad a shape you're in or how bad your situation. Do little things to start making it better. And as you feel better, you'll be able to do more, and you'll be encouraged to do more. So be willing to be patient and go through that process of like incremental improvement, and you'll be surprised in a year's time, if you commit, how much better you'll feel, and whatever that means for you.
Right. And this is such a good time. 2021, I look at it as a big reset. We've gone this 2020. We're all ready for 2021. So it's the perfect time to take that advice and start small, start one thing at a time, and it gradually builds up. And you'll look back and say, wow, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, great. Well, so for people, all right, we have your podcast. I'll put the links for that. I'll put also the link for your pillow that people can look for your pillow. And because that sounds fascinating. That sounds really, custom pillows. That's a wonderful idea.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
yeah. And then if there's anything else, we can always add it to the show notes. So
Okay.
anyway, thank you. It's been a pleasure, and look forward to keeping in touch and hearing all your interviews and the interesting things that you keep doing.
Thank you. You too. It was good to talk to you.
Yeah, thanks so much. I hope you've enjoyed my interview with Richard and have some good takeaways that you can put into your life. All the links we talked about will be in the show notes. So bye for now, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.